Okay, hello tech team. Now, obviously, I am a Cubase user, but I just wanted to go through and just give you a little bit of an idea about the stages that we're talking about, and just to kind of go through and basically edit one track. Now, I haven't actually listened to this track. It's an Alto 1. Now, what I've done is I've loaded in the guide track for Alto 1. Now, obviously, if you're doing trimming, you won't need to do this. Okay, but I've added this in because I'm going to do trimming and then I'm going to go through and do pitching and rhythm sync. So I've got the guide track here in this part here, and I've got then what is Katie Wilson's Alto 1 track. Now so basically we've got two tracks in there. Okay, now if you are a timing person, I'm just going to mute the guide track for the moment. You would therefore look at this and you just probably have a quick listen. Hopefully you can hear this.
2, 2, 3.
Okay, so she's got a decent 2, 2, 3. Now we are cutting off the first two. Now if I zoom in there, you can see actually the 2, 2, you've got the T sound and then the oo. And in there you've got the T and that's the oo there. So 2, t, oo. So it's basically cutting at the point of the beginning of that 2 sound. And you'll see there's a little dotty line on Cubase here for me. Now, I go through and I get my scissors and I basically chop it at that point. Okay? I get rid of that and I've now got this edited part that literally starts exactly with 2, 2, 3. Have a listen.
2, 3.
Like so. Now, if I was, again, my guide track up there doesn't do that, but don't worry about that too much at the moment. You'll see there's a little bit of noise here. You can probably hear a little bit of a shuffle. Doesn't matter though, because it's going to get rid of, that's going to be got rid of in the final kind of mix down. We can obviously then, if you're a trimmer, go basically to the end. And you always get this. As the person's just about to turn it off, you get noises and things like that. So if we listen to that last note. Like so. Now what you would want to do is you don't want to cut it exactly. You want to give a little bit of time. So I'm just going to kind of give it there. Okay, before all those noises come in, and I'll then get rid of that. Now if you are a trimmer, that is your job done for that one file. Okay, you would therefore export just that file. Okay, starting at the beginning. Okay, so you want to make sure, again, different software does this differently, but I've moved that to the very beginning and I'm starting my export window at bang on that beat. So it literally starts instantly with 2, 3.
2, 3.
Like so, and could then export that. I would export it, and again, your software will have different settings and ways of doing this, but for me, I go File, Export, Audio, Mixdown, and I would therefore do it as a mono MP3. Okay, mono MP3, and again, quality-wise, I could do it at 320, but although actually it's only going to be 160 because it's mono. But basically, you can choose relatively high quality, but most of these are done on phones, so it's not like we're talking about ridiculously high-quality audio files. You do a mono down mix. You make sure you name it the same as it's named there. But all you need to do is T for trimmed. So this one is therefore called Alto 1 Katie Wilson. So I would go in and I'd call it Alto 1 Katie Wilson T, meaning it's been trimmed. You would then export that out to your own drive system. And when you've done the amount you've been given, you would then upload those into the file system that Andrew went through, and that will have, hopefully by the time you see this, that file system will be up and running. So Alto 1 Katie Wilson T, and you just export that one track on its own. Now at this point, nothing else has been done. It's not been normalized, it's not been faffed with, it's just basically lop the end off and the beginning off, and we're fine. That's the trimmer's job. Okay, if you're a trimmer, that's what you do. Nice and simple. Okay, so if you're a trimmer, you can stop watching now, unless you're interested in the pitching. So trimming job, you've got lots of them to do, but each of those processes shouldn't be too time consuming. Now, pitching. Different pitching software is always different, but I just want to go through and give you an idea about the quality we're after here. The first thing you want to do is open up and look at, and I'm going to actually do the same bit of editing with my guide track. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2. So my 2 is there. So I can zoom in and I can just cut just before that point. I can then get rid of that and I can drag in my guide track straight to the beginning. So officially now they will start exactly at the same time.
2, 3.
And they do. Okay. Now what I will do is I will go in to my my guide track. My guide track had already been pitched incorrect. Now obviously in Cubase I have a thing called Vari Audio. And it's like Melodyne. Melodyne does it very similar to this. I've got Melodyne, but this Cubase versions is just a little bit quicker because it's integrated into the software. If you are a pitch corrector, you may have your own software way of doing this. But I just want to go through. It's more about the quality output that I'm looking for than necessarily you having to buy a full version of Cubase. So with a track, it loads in, and then basically it's analysed the pitch of that track. Okay. That's the whole piece there, okay? And that's my guide track. Now, I at that point would put everything and initially put a really just a 100% pitch quantize, okay? This doesn't necessarily, because it's already been pitched, so the pitch correction should pick it up relatively well because it's already been pitched. So I can go through this. In fact, I need to make sure you can hear that. And there's no issues with it. I'll just kind of check there. Because it's been pitched, you'll see, now you see here is the first thing. My pitch correction technology, and if you use pitch correction technology, you'll know this. It's picked this up because it's a semitone move. It's picked that up as one note where I just randomly halfway through go really flat. So obviously, I'm just in mind going to chop those two things up and re-pitch correct those two things. Okay? Obviously, your software may do things differently, and that's absolutely fine, but I just want to go through. Now, the actual guide track is not the important thing here. It's only that I use the guide track as a visual representation so I can look at the track the person's uploaded, and I can then compare it to my guide track relatively easily, and you'll see how I do this. You see where the last note finishes as well, and that's always an important one. You need to check where your last guide track finishes, which looks probably... For me, if I'm in 100, if on this, it's like bar 82 and a bit. But obviously, your session may be in seconds. But just when you load the guide track in, make sure that the track that you're editing, the note finishes at the correct place. Nice and simple. If that means stretching it out a little bit or moving it back a little bit, then that's absolutely fine. So I've done my guide track now. Okay, my guide track has been pitched, and that's fine. But it was already pitch corrected. Now I'm going to go into Katie Wilson's, and I'm going to do exactly the same process. I'm going to analyze the track, and it'll do exactly the same thing. Now, because this has not already been processed, and I haven't listened to this is 100% true. I just picked randomly from the Alto 1 box. So we may have picked an issue one, but hopefully it's not going to be too problematic. But if it is got issues, then I suppose at least you can see those issues being dealt with. So it's analyzed this. Sometimes it takes longer, sometimes it doesn't. And we can see her track, which looks really pretty good. Okay. Sometimes if it looks too good, it may be that they've pitch corrected it themselves. When we zoom in, though, we do see a little bit of pitch drift. Okay. And you can see here some pitch drift. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is go through, quantize it to 100%. So it's basically put everything to the nearest note. I scan through. And I scan through and I say, okay, yeah, it's done the same thing there. I need to chop that. So I'm going to go and chop those notes apart where I can clearly see that she's followed and she's moved downwards by a semitone, but the pitch correction hasn't quite picked that up. And again, she generally finishes at the correct place. Now, this looks like a really good one. And it may be that she's pitch corrected it herself. We'll have to have a listen. But in the end of the day, if she has, it's not the end of the world if she's done it well. We did tell people not to, but we'll go from there and see what we're looking like. So we can see already that she starts a little bit under the pitch. We're not going to worry about that at the moment. And I haven't even listened to it yet. So this is all the stuff you can do before listening. You will see here, though, that that's two words there, one and voice. Okay. You're going to want to, if you're a syncer. So if it's pitch, that your job might be done. From the pitch point of view, if you're only able to do pitch, that's your job done. Okay. Not particularly problematic. Let's have a listen.
One voice.
Now if I put it on,
One voice.
I've panned it there so you can hear both of them.
One voice.
Some timing issues. So we can say that she's done a decent track. Okay, so the pitch there, we can see this because I've loaded both of those tracks up simultaneously, and you can see that generally the pitch of those is absolutely fine, like the pitches have done. So she's never really been more than a semitone, out with her pitch. There's definitely some timing stuff though. So if you were just doing pitching, that pitching job would now be done, and you could therefore export it with a P for pitching. Okay, however, it ain't done because we got to do rhythm. Okay, so this is how I do it. You don't have to do it this way, but just to let you know. And again, by the way, it may be that at some point I go and unpitch correct it from 100%, but at the moment I normally have it on 100%, and then I start doing some other stuff. So what I'm going to do here is, and I will explain why, I'm going to basically raise the entirety of her track up by one semitone. Okay, there's a reason for this, for me, a quick reason. I'm going to do that. I'm going to go through and I'm going to add both of these back in together. Okay, and now you will see that I can see her track above the correct timings of my guide track. Okay, and if I look at my guide track, I can already see where our sync issues are. I can see that she has come in a little bit late, so I can therefore drag that note into sync. And again, her voice comes in a little bit late and she ends it a little bit early. So I can therefore sort that out. Now, synchronization is so much more time consuming, but it also makes a massive difference to the overall sound of the track. So I don't even need to listen to this unless there's bits that look a bit odd. Because my guide track is relatively well done, I can basically just be looking at this visually and actually moving these things in place, making sure that her timing is the same. And then basically it's just a matter of making the boxes line up, really. And this is pitching, this is synchronization for me. We'll get on to the fact of whether she has issues where she sometimes is under the note or over the note. There's a thing called pitch straightening, which sorts out the pitch drift. But I think we can already see here she's done a really good job. I don't think she may have pitched it, I don't know, but she definitely hasn't synced it because it's not synced. We can see here that actually she's a little bit off with some of her sync, but again, that's not surprising. At this point, I wouldn't necessarily have a massive go at it or anything. I think it's pretty positive. Now, obviously, you can see she's got that little bit of a micro scoop. I always keep them because they're musical. She gets on the note really quickly. If I was to hard quantize everything and move that up to the right pitch, so if we have a listen to that. If I was to drag that up, it would sound robotic. That's when it starts sounding robotic. Now, this is a point here. If we just look there, she's ever so slightly late on that again. Now, I'm not going to do, in fact, I'll carry on and do what I think is the entire track. And you'll see that she moves a little bit early there. So we can go through there. And this is literally, it's a relatively boring process, but the impact it has is huge. Now, this bit would need to be listened to because she finishes very late. I think this is a ninja breath. Okay, I think she's taking a ninja breath here because the gap between these is in the middle of two notes. So I'm going to listen. Now, don't worry here. She is a semitone sharp from the actual overall track. This is about working out what she's done. So let's just have a quick listen. Here we go. Yes, she has. So she's done really a nice ninja breath. So I don't need to do anything there. All I need to do is move that there. So that's a ninja breath. So be careful when you're looking at that. I could see it. There was just too big a gap. So she'd obviously done a ninja breath there. So I could therefore sort that out. Okay. This next bit she seems to have done absolutely fine on, like so. And again, I can do a similar thing there. And again, you're going to kind of have a listen through to this. Yeah, you might want to, if it was you might want to listen through to it before you do any of this. But I'm kind of doing this because this is kind of the process, and you want to be making sure you listen through to it to identify any of these. So it takes that one I think we've got there. And again, the timing is just a little bit out, so we can massage that back in to place, and we should be okay. Now, there, 1 second. So we're getting into there. We're doing that pitching. And yeah, it just takes a little while. Pitching is a lot quicker. Synchronization is a lot slower. Now, I know some of you may have software like Revoice Pro, which I got a trial version of. And whilst I found it useful, anytime you had a ninja breath, it completely had massive issues for me when I had stuff with ninja breaths. It was really problematic. It started squishing all sorts of stuff. But if you can use other software that's going to do a decent job, and when I say a decent job, I mean an actual decent job, it should sound like their voice. It should. I think she's done another ninja breath here. Let's just have a listen. Yes, she has, and she's done a very good ninja breath. Leave the ninja breath. I am saying don't get rid of the ninja breath. Don't try and stick that together because it's going to sound odd. I don't think we need to. We think we need to. All we're doing is basically just giving a little bit of a help. She's done a ninja. Whoops-a-daisy. She's done another ninja breath there, I think. I'll listen, but I'm pretty sure she has done a ninja breath. Yes, she has. Okay. She's pretty nailed in, and this is, again, I can say already that this is a good track based upon how little synchronization I'm having to do. If they were all like this, then it would be a very, very quick procedure that we'd be doing. Yeah, let me just check where she transitions here. 1 second. So there's a thing here where there's a word change, and I don't know where I think she's slightly early, but let's just have a listen. Don't worry, I've got used to listening things where they're semitone apart. I know it sounds weird, but I'm listening for sync here because I'll change the pitch back to what it was before. It's just that otherwise they're all on top of each other and you can't see the sync points. That's a tricky one, actually. She begins the V of voice, but takes a little while to get to it. Let me just have a quick listen. Okay. I think I'll probably chop it there for voice. And I think my guide track doesn't come in on voice until here. So she's looks like she's maybe a little bit early, but let's just have a quick listen. Yeah, so so sometimes it takes a little bit long. You have to do a little bit of thought, but again, we're going to move that so the V of voice comes in at exactly the same point. Slightly change the pitch, but at the end of this, I'm going to repitch the whole thing anyway. And again, it's always a non-destructive process. Okay, so again, I'm just going to keep, this is Everyone Will Sing, which is absolutely fine. You can see she's done a really good job, actually. You can see it. You can see that she must have spent a bit of time getting all this stuff sorted because she's very, very close to all the syncing we're wanting. It's really close. So she's done a fab job, which is brill. Not all of them will be this close. Obviously, some of them will take you significantly longer. If you're not sure you can get it all into place, that's when, if you start looking at this, you're going to be like, okay, I could do with a little bit of help. And that's when you just flag it as a technical issue that you're going to really struggle to kind of get that done, because it might be a bit problematic. I think she's done a ninja breath there as well. She's missed out a word, which is brilliant. And again, when they do ninja breaths properly, you can see it. You can really see it really easily. And yeah, so I'm quite looking forward to having a listen to this once it's all pitched and stuff. And we're getting towards the end now. And I think we've been doing this now for maybe 15 minutes, this track specifically. Now, is that all it takes is? Okay, let's just have a quick listen to this. So that's it. So I just need to quickly cut my the it so I can sync that, because she has her it. Okay, there. She's a little bit early, but that's okay. Like so. All it takes is she's late on takes. And don't worry, I know that it's changed the pitch, but I do basically do my pitch thing right at the end. All it takes is one voice. Excellent. And make sure that she's a little bit, tiny little bit long. Okay, so at that point, I copy the whole thing. I 100% pitch correct. Then I go back into just hers, and I move the whole lot down by one semitone. So basically now, these two pieces should be exactly in time. One through the right ear, one through the left ear. Let's have a listen and see if they are. And I've done no pitch correcting on the pitch drift. So there is still movement and there's still her natural vibrato. If we wanted to, maybe if she had a lot of vibrato, we can minimize that. But again, let's just have a listen and see if these two things are synced up well.
One voice, one voice, one voice.
Pretty good. So I think we'd say that is pretty much perfect. Okay, her voice it's still her voice. It's still her voice. We've pitch corrected it, and I've pitch corrected at 100. I'm aware of that, but actually I haven't done any straight and curve. Now, say that she had loads of vib. She's got a lovely kind of chilled out vibrato in some of the notes. Okay, say that was bigger. However, okay. Say that like it was a big old vibrato. You can either, if there's specific notes, you could get rid of that vibrato. But really, I would like vibrato that is within a semitone. So if this vibrato was going up and down and the vibrato was you'd want to try, if you know how, to try and stabilize that vibrato, but without making it sound like a robot. Now, I normally straight and curve the smallest amount I can and not at all. And you'll see that if I put a 30% straightening of the curve, you'll see that her vibrato is significantly less, okay? But the more you do this, the more it doesn't sound like a human being, and the gap between notes, then suddenly it snaps pitch and it sounds awful. Now, if I was to basically do an auto thing and basically straighten all the pitch out, and we just had to listen to her track, you'll see what I mean. This is like bad pitch correction.
One voice, one voice.
You might think that's not too bad, but anytime it moves a note,
One voice.
here, have a listen to this bit.
One voice.
Hopefully you have as much hatred for that as I do. So really, you don't want to use very much straight and curve. I want that nice, I mean, look at that. I mean, she's done such a good job of taking that note and she's gone really nicely down. We're talking like within like, you know, a hundredth of a second. She's just kind of, and she's planted it lovely. It's a lovely smooth curve. So I don't think we need to do anything like, I don't actually think that she needs very much. If you are being really picky, for example, there you can see she just dips down a little bit. Now what I normally do is I normally just chop that bit out and then just re-pitch correct so that therefore it doesn't drop down as much. I try and be as non-destructive to the person's voice as possible. I don't think she needs it, but if I'm showing the kind of stuff, if I was going through there and looking out, the moment you can see that she's really pretty solid on the pitching, there's only a couple of points, and I maybe would say, okay, let's just have the beginning of that, and let's just redo that to just give it a little bit more lift at the beginning. I mean, I think, you know, but I think she's done a really, really good job. So there's not much. She's a little bit above the pitch at that point. So I might then just go for that one and just massage the beginning, but keep the majority of the note exactly as it was, but just slightly bring down that note. So that's really about 20 minutes. And that, again, I could have done that a lot quicker, but I've obviously been explaining it. So that's probably, I would say, a less than a 15-minute job to do that. Okay. And then her track is done. So I would then export that track when I've done it. And it would say TP, Katie Wilson TP. And again, probably TPS, so pitched and synced. For example, it may be that you can do pitch, but you can't do sync. So you may therefore say that you need someone else to sync it for you. And then they're absolutely fine doing that. Okay, there's people who can do that. So Alto 1, Katie Wilson, TPS if you've done all of it, TPS, TP if you've pitched it, TPS if you've done the other. So we should be okay there. So, I mean, hopefully, I mean, that's one. Obviously, I tend to spend a lot of time, quite a bit of time doing that, but it finishes at, let's just have a listen to the very end. Let's just see how we go in there. Put those two things together. In fact, let's put them both in through the same, and we've got basically both through the middle of the center of the headphones.
One voice.
Just her. Okay, and together with me. Lovely job. Okay, that was absolutely lovely track from her. And so that's perfect, spot on. At that point, you would export that, TPS, as a mono MP3, and that would then be ready pretty much to put in the final mix. Okay, obviously I won't go through final mix stuff now because that's a little bit way through, but you would basically do the same process. So if you're using Alto 1, you'd keep that Alto 1 guide track, you'd maybe export that one as a track, you'd get rid of it, or you could just minimize it and therefore mute it and then add in another one, and you then do exactly the same to the next track, the next track, the next track. So you only ever need to basically pitch and get your guide track there once as a reference. Everything else, you just dump it in, pitch, sync, dump in, pitch, sync, export, pitch, sync, export, of however many you've got. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense, and that kind of gives you an idea. The less we can do with this, the better. But I do want to pitch it all so we don't have any of this kind of pitch drift, which we get on a lot of virtual choir ones that we hear from people who are not as used to doing pitch correction and used to doing this kind of stuff. And it makes a difference. And again, if we listen to, again, Dover sounds quite natural, but that Dover had exactly this process. Everything was pitched, synced to be as good as it could be. Basically, it's still their voices, but it's just them on a really good day. As if they were actually in there in a chorus. So hopefully that's useful. 28 minutes we're pretty much at, so hopefully you've made it to the end. But that just gives you an idea about what we mean when we say pitched and synced. I'm aware that some of you use different software, so you might have your own way of doing things, and that's fine, as long as what comes out at the other end doesn't have those pitch snap things and the funny old sounds when you're trying to sync, as long as it has that nice, as natural a sound as we can, and as long as you're not just going for auto settings that potentially might be very quick and you might get through 30 recordings like in a day. But if they're going to need to be gone over and done again, because when you put them in the track, suddenly we've got the robot army descending upon us. Obviously, we want to be as musical as we can with this, so that most people would listen to it and not think, ooh, that's been pitch corrected. That's not because we're going to be like lying and pretending, but so it doesn't sound like it and it doesn't actually affect people's kind of emotional journey, listen to the song, because they're constantly thinking about the pitch correction. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. Thank you very much. And thank you very much for helping us out. See you in a bit.